guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having a great day so far. Today we're going to be trying out the very exciting new foundation from Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Airbrush Flawless Foundation from her. It officially launches on the 22nd, which will be, I think, tomorrow when this goes up. So yes, we have it a couple of days early because she did a pre-release on her website. If you sign up to her notifications, then you got to access it a couple of days early. So when you order from Charlotte Tilbury's website, you can choose 2 samples, and I chose this sample card of this foundation so I could show you some shade swatches. It has the full range on the back here, and I think that looks pretty impressive. You know, Charlotte Tilbury has been a brand that has always released quite small shade ranges that aren't massively inclusive previously, so I think this is such a huge step to have 44 shades released in their initial release. You know, no 10 now, let's wait for the rest later. 44 is a huge step up for this brand, so I think that is very exciting. So as per most launches of foundation that have a huge number of shades, it's quite confusing to pick your shade, and I have only got my winter shade in Charlotte Tilbury foundation, which is a 6, and even then obviously the shade range does not completely marry up because there's so much more with this foundation. So anyway, I ordered 2 shades to choose from. The first was 7.5 neutral, which is supposed to be a olive for medium skin tones with a neutral undertone, and then I ordered 9W, which is also supposed to be a olive shade, but a warm olive shade. So let me show you the swatches of the shades that came on the card. Hopefully that will help somebody. So first up we have 3C, obviously a cool tone shade. You can really see that cool tone there, perfect. Then we have 4N, a neutral tone shade. 5.5, another neutral, 5.5N this is, 7.5N, which is the shade I've chosen, 9W, which is a warm olive. Both of these are claimed to have olive undertones, so this is supposed to be a neutral olive and a warm golden olive, and then right at the end there is 16 neutral and neutral undertone shade. So hopefully those swatches will help someone. I was thinking that I was going to use 9W. As you can see, my body is significantly more tan than my face because I use a lot of SPF, I use a lot of skincare, keep my face in the shade as much as possible. So my body is much more tan than my face. However, looking at the swatches, 9W is extremely orangey, and because I'm more olive, I don't look great in very warm shades. So 7.5N, which is a neutral olive tone, looks far better of a tone for me, and I'll be able to use this shade in the winter as well, so I've decided to keep this one instead of 9W, which is the one I thought would be better for me. There is no 8 or 9N, which would be a better shade for me right now. I'm thinking obviously this is going to be too light for me, to work and make everything look this like one person, which is fine. We can bronze up and things like that, and I'll be able to use it in the winter. 9W was just going to be completely off as far as tone, so I'm going to send that one back. But yeah, I would have loved an 8 or a 9N, which there doesn't seem to be for some reason. It skips that in the neutral range. It just goes from 7.5N, and then I think the next one is like 10N, which would have been too dark. So all the claims about this foundation will be on the screen as usual for you, but the summary is, it sounds incredibly hydrating, 216% hydration apparently. It's supposed to have lots of skincare, anti-aging, anti-pollution barriers, just incredible foundation and claims for more mature skin. It also sounds like it's going to work for lots of skin types because it's so hydrating, should be good for dry skin, should be great for oily skin. Obviously most things are great for normal skin if you're that lucky. The packaging is divine, of course it is. It's Charlotte Tilbury. I love everything from her brand. I think the price point of this foundation is phenomenal. £10 cheaper than the ABH foundation in the UK. Let's just take a moment, let that sink in. £10 cheaper than the ABH foundation costs in the UK. So I'm very excited to get this on my face and see if it lives up to those claims. Let's get started. I'm sorry about all the sniffling and everything else, runny nose that might be going on today. I've got a really bad like cold and a sinus infection. I can't even speak. I don't know if you're going to have been able to hear that noise, but that is the noise that happens through our windows. It's like a whistling wind through the window crack. Let me tell you, the first night we moved in, we bought this house and that noise happened and we were like, that's why it was so cheap. It's haunted. Apologies if you can hear my kids screaming and shouting in the background. It's school holidays. You know, I would lock them in a cupboard, but it's frowned upon. So I have just primed with my Silk Canvas by Tatcha so that we know what we're working with. Nothing funky is going to happen because of the primer. Going to give it a good shake. This packaging is just so beautiful. Everything Charlotte Tilbury does is just beautifully packaged. So I also read, I've just done like 3 pumps and I'm sure like it says you're only supposed to use 1. So you can see it's got a slight run to it. It's not incredibly thick. Hard to smell with an incredibly blocked nose, but definitely got a bit of like a skincare scent. You know, it doesn't smell heavily fragrant, just a skincare type of smell to it. So as usual with first time trying a foundation, I'm going to be doing a sponge on one side and a brush on the other to see if there is a better method one way or the other with this foundation. I did read that the foundation on Charlotte Tilbury's website, she did say that it takes 5 minutes to sort of go dry down to like its true shade, so make sure you are bearing that in mind when you're swatching and choosing your shade, that it will dry down darker. Another reason why I plumped for the 7.5 instead of the 9W, although the swatches I showed you earlier were absolutely dried down. Because what is the point in showing you wet swatches? I don't understand why people do that. It means nothing to me. So it's a really good match actually for my face, which is what I was hoping for. You know, I've bought so many foundations in the summer. We've had so many foundation launches. I've got a ton of foundations that I love in my summer shade, but because they're all new, I don't have any of them in my winter shade. So I was kind of hoping if we buy this one closer to my winter shade, at least I'll have something when winter rolls around. You know, but also this is just a way better tone for me. You can see it's like a great undertone for me, whereas 8 and 9W definitely too much on the warm sort of yellow side as opposed to being olive. So it's gone on nicely. It's taken a little bit just to blend it. It was almost making like sponge marks. You can kind of see, we're going to just leave this to sit for a second before I go in on the brush side so you can see the difference in shade. I can already see this darkening down. This is going to be absolutely fine, I think, for me to use, you know, pretty soon, because we're already, although we're about to apparently go into a 3-week heat wave today. I'm home with my kids right now, but it is quite sunny outside. It's not hot. It's like 25 degrees probably. It's quite humid. And I'm going to be outside most of the day because I have my kids with me. So it's going to be a decent test. And I'm going to give this a really nice long wear test for you guys. It's 10 AM now. So yeah, we're going to give this a good 9 or 10 hours. So yeah, you definitely see this is darkened down, and this is now a nice kind of happy medium between like my face and neck and my body, which is exactly what I was hoping for with this shade. So now with my Sigma F80 on this side, wow, a little goes such a long way with this foundation. It's one that's probably going to take a bit of getting used to, because you will just need 1 pump, which is again just makes that price point even better, because if you're only using a small amount, it's such good value for such a luxurious brand. It's not actually, when applying this on this side, looking like it's hugely different as far as wet versus dry, but definitely appears to be a slight difference. It's not fully covered my melasma, so I've definitely seen, you know, fuller coverage foundations. Certainly done a pretty good job of everything else. It's covered the melasma that I have like here, but my forehead is like more prominent. For me, the focus is always to try and get the tone of the foundation right. If it's a bit light or a bit dark, you can, you know, either use concealer or use bronzer to kind of even everything out. But if the tone is off, it's always going to look worse than if like the depth is off. That's my personal feeling, and this tone is perfect for me, perfect. So I can live with it being a little light. But I'm kind of torn because it's looking slightly heavy in certain areas, just as an initial. So I think it's probably going to be one that I'm going to prefer to use with a sponge, but having said that, it hasn't fully covered my melasma, so I'm just going to use a little dot more and see if it actually can cover that with just a bit of building up. See how it builds, because obviously some people will have more than me to cover, and we'll be interested to see whether this really can cover anything. So yeah, that's actually almost totally covered that melasma just with a little bit of building up, and the sponge has completely taken any excess off. So I think it's just a case that I put a bit too much on, because obviously I pumped out too much at the beginning. Wasn't really sure how much, you know, it was gonna need. So yeah, I just think with this, sponge is gonna help you control how much product's going on, and this is gonna be a sponge application, build up really easily wherever you need it. At the moment it's just looking flawless, like a perfect flawless canvas. So here we are, here is our starting point. There's a tiniest bit of tack still to the foundation. So what we'll do is I'll finish the rest of my makeup, and by then we'll be able to see what the true like finish of this foundation looks like. At the moment it's definitely got a glowy finish to it. I'd say it's a luminous finish right now, which is kind of what I expected from the other reviews I've seen and the other people just wearing it that I've seen. It's a teeniest bit soaking into my deeper smile line, but just barely. Forehead looks really good, chin area looks pretty good. The rest of my face looks absolutely flawless, very smooth. It does feel cool. I really do feel what they're talking about, that cooling, hydrating feeling. So it's going to feel lovely on mature and dry skin. So let's take a flash photo, see how it does in flash, and let's put the rest of my face on and see how everything goes on top. Back in a few. Okay guys, we are back. So it's been about an hour since I finished putting the foundation on. I took a flash photo, which I think looks great. Obviously, I do look a little ghost face, but that is just because the shade is too light. It's a lot lighter than my body, but that isn't a white cast or a flashback. You're just seeing the foundation be lighter than my body. As I knew to be the case, it is like considerably lighter than my body and has stayed so, you know, it's not dried down and oxidized to match my body. I know whenever I say this, people always say, oh no, it's a great match. I don't know if they're being kind or whether you can't see it on camera, but believe me, this is much lighter than my body. I would say that this 7.5N is a great shade for like an NC30, or someone around that mark between NC 25 to 30 could probably wear this shade. Definitely too light for me now, but I'm okay with that because, you know, we're approaching September, guys. In a month I won't be able to wear a lot of my summer foundations, so this is going to be great for me to have then. I'm so out of breath. I've been running up and down the stairs, taking flash photos, screaming at my dog. You get it. So yeah, everything went on top of it beautifully. As always, I list all my other products in the description bar down below. Every video, anything that's on my face is in the description bar down below. Everything, bronzer and blush. I didn't put highlight on today because I've got a glowy blush on, so I don't have highlighter, but I used my bronzer, my blush, concealer, etc. Everything went on top of it beautifully, no issues. It has dried down now, there's no tack left, but it still is looking like a luminous foundation to me. It's not dewy, not necessarily glowy, but it's got a luminosity to it. So exactly what I was kind of hoping for. It's kind of reminding me a little bit of the finish of my Rodior foundation. Maybe not as luminous as that one, but it's kind of in that ballpark. Let's have the tea. Let's have a little bit of a close-up. Don't mind my nose, I just had a bit of an incident, but we can sort that out. Don't worry about it. It's slightly gone into the deeper of my smile lines, but not my friendlier smile line. So definitely not the worst I've seen in my smile lines, but it definitely has sunk a little into the worst of the two. Everyone has a favourite smile line, you know, it's like eyebrows. My forehead looks good. If anything, it looks a little heavy on my forehead, but I could certainly have done with using a little bit less product. And my problem area, like I have, you know, texture and fine lines and everything on my chin and all just around here, like early signs of aging, things like lines, things like that. It looks pretty good. Not the best starting point I've ever had, but it does look okay and it looks pretty good in that problem area. It's not exaggerating lines and texture, but I also wouldn't say it's like smoothing it or hiding it either. But yeah, the body of my face looks really beautiful and smooth and lovely. So as a starting point, I'm going to say we're kind of okay at the moment. I'm hoping things are going to get better. If it stays like this all day, it's just going to be okay for me. But I do feel like given all of the hydrating claims and all of those ingredients in here, it's likely to be one that kind of improves throughout the day. It is supposed to be incredibly long wearing, transfer proof, all of those things. So that's gonna be an element as to whether this is a real win for me, if it holds up and it stands up to all of those wearing claims. So I'm gonna go about my day and I will see you in 1 second. So we are back, and we are impressed. Well, I'm impressed, I don't know about you, but this is definitely one of those foundations, like I thought it might be, that like looks better and better as the day goes on. It looks really glowy, smooth and flawless. We are now at 7:30. It's 9.5 hours roughly since I put this on. I've been like quite hot today. I've been out in the garden with my kids. Earlier on my son was crying. I still don't know what happened. I asked my daughter to explain why she'd made my son cry and I got a 45-minute long story and I'm still none the wiser, so who can tell. But he had his, you know, sad wet face pressed up against mine and there wasn't even any transfer on him. Usually, you know, if I cuddle my kids and they press their face right up against mine, they'll get some foundation, at least if not bronzer and all sorts on their face, and nothing was on his face. And you can see like nothing has come off or worn off. Even where I get a little bit shiny, the foundation is still fully intact on my nose. Excuse the bruise. Another poem for you guys, you are spoiled. And I'm a tiny bit shiny just here, as I always do. If you are new here, I have a very oily like nose. Basically I'm normal skin with an oily nose, slightly oily elsewhere in the T-zone, but essentially it's mainly around my nose and my nose that gets oily. And although I'm a tiny bit shiny, remember it looks worse with the lights than it does in person. Tiny bit shiny on the nose and around the nose, but better than 90% of my foundations out there. It's definitely solidly sunk into my deeper smile line, but not the other one. Not on my forehead, nowhere else. And I feel like if I just used a bit less, you know, I definitely used too much this morning, then that probably wouldn't be as much of an issue either. It feels completely like nothing. I feel hydrated. It feels like I have no foundation on. I feel very lightweight and cool on my face, which is exactly what they say, and I do feel like it lives up to its sort of natural matte claim, but it does look very healthy at the same time. It doesn't look flat and matte in that way that I don't like at all. Those are my thoughts on this foundation. It has a lot going for it. A really good shade range with great undertones, beautiful packaging, incredibly long wearing with lots of waterproof, transfer proof, life proof claims, and it seems to live up to, as far as my day certainly. You need a very small amount to get full flawless coverage. It definitely has the natural matte finish that it claims, and it photographs beautifully under flash as well as looking really beautiful in natural daylight. I really enjoyed this. I think it looks beautiful and it's definitely going to give my favourite foundations a bit of a run for their money. I'm going to keep playing with it. I 100% recommend going in with a sponge and 1 to 2 pumps and not a brush and 3 pumps like I did this morning, because it just doesn't, you don't need it. My children are trying to break into the door, so I better let it go. I hope you guys found this review helpful. Any questions I didn't answer for you, please hit me up in the comments down below. And if you've used this foundation, please let us know what your skin type is and how you got on with it down below. That is always so helpful for everybody to hear other skin types and skin tones and shades, etc. So please all help each other out in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.